Okay, I didn't expect my voice to drop like this. Luckily for me, I prepared myself, so I had to prepare in advance of the event. So Peter will take on from here. What we actually will do is have you guys introduce themselves first, and then we go through their history of games that they made, chronological order, up to the projects that you're working on right now. Okay, now you give the mic to Peter.
So, hi, welcome to the second part of my show. So yeah, these are the Boy Without Brains. While I read through the questions, I suggest that the guys introduce themselves. This is like a little pass the mic game. So whoever starts happy wins something. One more thing.
Yeah, one more thing. Before you integrate, the guys sign a poster card of their first game, Archive. So it's all the autographs on there, including the autograph for Junta. At the end of the interview, you guys will have the opportunity to submit your own questions. The best questions, I don't know how we will decide that, probably not very honest, will win this card. So that's an extra bonus.
Best question.
You may write me down from the station. So good. Let's start with the contestant number one, and please pass on the microphone while I read the questions.
So my name is Mario van Zijst. I am the programmer of one of the games you see there, Eurocon. I'm also the programmer of Disposable Hero, you might have heard of. And well, is it first only the names and after that?
Just a short introduction.
Right. Okay, I'm still programming at this day because that's the only thing I can do. Anything with the keyboard is okay for me. At the moment, I'm not doing any more games. We actually I stopped making games, well, more than 20 years ago. We actually stopped making games because at first we were only a very small group and it was not very expensive to make your own games because, well, we were young and we were all together, so it was very easy to make games. But later on, it was much more expensive to get all the CGI and all the people involved, etc. It was for us, yeah, it just cost too much to make games, so then I stopped to make games and actually went into So I keep it at that, and you have some questions later.
My name is Jacco van Driet. I did on Hawkeye, I did the graphics, the backgrounds, and the sprites with Arthur, who's not here today. Then on Filippo's Quest, which is programmed by Lawrence, I did the main character sprite and some of the graphics. I did some marketing stuff. I did boxes for Disposable Hero. I don't remember. that was already 30 years ago. So,
my name is Laurens van Roonk. I developed Filippo's Quest and Super Trucker. Super Trucker was a small game which was sold to CP Verlag in Germany. And I'm still developing. Tried a game a couple of years ago on the Windows Phone, but Microsoft dropped the platform where we were developing on, so we stopped the game. And I'm doing web applications now, so still developing, but not games at the moment.
Hello, Edwin van Heuvel. I'm kind of the Benjamin of the Boys Without Brains, I think. I stepped in mid-90s after Disposable Hero. Worked on other games with Boys Without Brains like Eurocon game and FC Knudden game, you might have heard of. And we tried to make Filippo's Quest remake on the Super Nintendo. I think you remember, guys. This graphics on that, and VKill, the game. On PC, never got released, but it is some graphics. Nowadays I'm I'm independent animator and graphics artist. And with my brother, I started making games again, because I couldn't let it go, I think, on mobile platforms. And I asked Boys for Brains, which I have some history with, to help me with development and sometimes think tank to make the games as good as possible today. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Drew Tell. Started making game music when I was 15 years old. The first game actually that I made the music for was this game, Hawkeye. It was not the first game released, because some Houston guys released some game very fast, but it was like low budget. Anyway, let's say, what do I do? What did I do? I wrote a lot of music for video games. Commodore 64, Amiga, Sega, Game Boy, Master System, Genesis, whatnot. I kind of skipped the whole PlayStation thing. Music has been released on PlayStation by me, but it was mostly conversions of old Konami machines and all that. Mainly stuck to PC games, a lot of casual games like the stuff from Xylem.com. With a big audience, I mean they have like 20,000 or something players a day, 20 million players a day, sorry, big difference. But also been doing a lot of conversions for this Mortal Kombat, like arcade machines. They were converted into a joystick, which actually had a game in it. You could plug it in directly into the TV. I did NHL, NFL from Electronic Arts and a lot of the other stuff, Spider-Man. Was a lot of fun to do, but mostly specialistic, very specialistic work for where a lot of program technical stuff is involved too. On the side of that, I've been doing a lot of Hollywood promotion feature website stuff, which means something like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie would come out, the whole Flash website would have my audio, so that was rather cool. And the projects involved was just the names were. Yeah, you couldn't believe it, like X-Man and James Bond, and you knew that your audio was being heard by like hundreds of millions of people, and that's like awesome. But, I would do it for free. But anyway, what I'm doing now, I'm actually working with one old schooler too, Barry Leach, and we make music for toys, which is actually a lot of fun to do, because you have to like put something like 20 minutes of music into less than 64 kilobyte, which again is a challenge again. You have the samples, the programming techniques, the notes, everything in it. So it's, but I have to keep it short. But I can't distance myself from video games. It's just too much fun, and I love the people I get to work with. Creative, open-minded, funny. Nerds, I wouldn't say, but good people, nice people. Okay, that's the introduction from all of us, I think.
Okay, so after we have the introductions, welcome all. Thank you for being here, and thank you for letting us pick your brains. We didn't have any, right? So that was a joke. I failed at improvising by my album anyway. So, starting off with Boys Without Brains, it kind of went from the demo scene that you all got together, correct? Yeah. Yes. So, any fond memories that you have those, and the last 3 ex-parties don't count. Who wants to start?
I don't think I have a very good anecdote with it.
Oh wait, no, but let's just go back to the demo scene memories and then go from there to the early games. Do you want to start?
Yeah, exactly.
We used to get together at the Venlo and Nijmegen meetings, 2 towns in the Netherlands, and those were the meetings in the Netherlands. They were legendary. People from Germany would come there. There was this thing going on. We made demos. We had demo groups, and demo groups were very, very competitive towards each other, and that led into some really, really funny demos and some really, really funny scenes at the shows. And we were involved in one of them, wasn't it, Jacko? But anyway, it got not fired. but it got to the point where we understood we were actually being too childish or something. But it was, it made it so much more interesting. We took it so serious. And that's the thing that actually pushed us all to make better graphics, better code, better music. You just had competition, but it was all friendly, normally. Some people took it to the level of where they thought they were better than anyone else. And when I would say the more relaxed guys noticed that, I think these guys would definitely could be called relaxed, because they don't have brains, they have thoughts. So, but it got to the point where some people were hated, and there was like clans and it's like that. But but it was fun. That made it just a very fun memory, especially if you're looking back after such a long time. So yeah, that's the first thing I could say about the demo scene.
Any other four what there was short thing about, or is everything covered? Yeah, you are there.
Yeah, how it all started for us was we were all making individual small demos, maybe intros for games which were cracked, and then at the end of the scroll text you would put your own address, and so I did. I made actually with Barry Leach. I made a demo called the Madonna demo, for which I made a picture, and Barry made the music of Papa Don't Preach. We both didn't like Madonna, but I just did the cover of that True Blue album at the time. And then I just put my address in, and then one of the guys in Limburg here in the Netherlands picked it up, my address, phoned me. Today he's the CEO of Facebook Benelux, by the way, Arno Lubelen. Funny, Laurens and I had a dinner with him a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, that's how it sort of started. And then you would send your diskettes every week to your friends all over the country. There was no internet, of course, so you had to send them. But indeed with fake stamps, with sort of sticky tape on them. I was also swapping with a guy from Amsterdam called Softrunner, and I think we already used a 7 guilder stamp for about 2 years in a row, back and forth, sending it on the highest express possible. And at one day there was a sort of postage, police, whatever, on the door questioning my mom. One of the funny things is that still today, I lived in Zoetermeer at the time, and when I was 15, I was getting loads of diskettes and stuff every day. But still today, my parents already sold the house a long time ago, but still today, each year there are still some diskettes coming, and we work there. Now, know still where my mom lives, and every year there's a package with at least 10 diskettes from somewhere in the world. And I don't even have a Commodore 64 anymore. But that's how it starts for me, and yeah, from then on I met all these guys in places like you mentioned in Nijmegen and Venlo, and then one day this guy came in with a big mushroom on his head, still with a lot of curls and lots of hair, and he made a sort of double scrolling, parallax scrolling, which was at the time amazing. Revolutionary as it moved in the background, and also something in front of it. And I didn't have any experience. And you want to say something about it?
Yeah. So that's how I started. I was. Oh yeah, sorry. So that's how I started. I also met all these guys, of course, on the shows. And one of my most fond memories is actually when we went to the shows in England. That was the highlights of our trips. So the shows in Venlo and Nijmegen were obviously very nice. But when our first game was actually almost completed, we all went to London to the shows, and we had some really good times there. I still know the first day we all went there. We were with I think 5 or 6 guys, including a guy you may have heard of, Charles Day. He was also there. But we didn't have a place to stay. So what we did is we went into we came in by train, and we went into a street, and we didn't know where we wanted to sleep that night. So I still remember that we went into a police station and asked if we could stay in maybe in the police cell for the night. And the policeman says, no, you can't. And one of our friends says, but if we smash in the window, and he says, yeah, you can stay, but then you will stay the entire weekend. We're not going to do that. So those are one of our very fond memories. Those are the shows in England. We had loads of fun there. So.
Yeah, and also on these shows we started to meet for us big names like Simon Nicol, who made Crazy Comets, Stavros Vassoulas from Finland, who made Sanction and Delta and QDex. He worked for Thalamus, for the company who published our first game, and I think we showed him a demo. And from then on it sort of rolled into Thalamus, and they phoned us. And, yeah,
the rest is history.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so that's how you moved from demos to games by showing the demos.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this one demo shown, of course, company says we do it, we don't do it. Where do you go from then? What's your development cycle? What's your now it's called development cycle, but back then just goofing off, I guess. Years. So at which point did you say, well, let's make a game? Okay, yeah, I have one negative reaction, so you volunteered.
Well, for me it was a bit different maybe than most of the other demo guys, because I didn't really make any demo. So the first thing I wanted to make was a game. So I started making games first thing. So Hawkeye was actually when we presented it to Thalamus, it was almost it was either almost or it was complete. It was completely done. So we developed the game completely from scratch, had our own ideas, put everything in it, and then went to Thalamus and said, well, you want it? Can you sell it? And that's actually how it went. I myself haven't done a lot of demos. I can remember. I think I've done one or two demos. But it was, for me, it was straight to making games.
Well, I remember that the hardest part was. You know, as a graphic artist, you are in the train to sort of be a part of it. But what I remember is that these guys are nice guys. They're perfectionists, but they're lazy as fuck. And the poor, you know, they're too perfectionist. That means that they will, you know, a little flashlight or a little. Effect which his sprite had to do, you know, he could work for a week on that, which is nice, but that's why it took years, and I think that's where most demo groups who started to do a game or start to do demos, you know, good demo doesn't make a game, and that's what it sort of needs. You need to push through all the way to sort of get it done, and that was one of my roles, I think, to sort of keep everybody together. And you know, along the way, we had fights, we had troubles. People were kicked in and kicked out, and it was. But you know, in the end, we sort of kept it together. We're able to sell it. Yeah, and then the next project comes in. The only pity I think we had, is that we were relatively at the end cycle of the 64 when our game came out, and it took a long time to finish, and that's why, the Amiga was already, you know, coming in, and the sales of the 64 were going down. So
Hawkeye was actually at the peak. Exactly.
Hawkeye was at the peak.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so. But still, you know, to get your money out, and it is really, really difficult. So yeah.
Well, you know, funny things about making music for demos was actually to show people who made games that I wanted to make music for games. Because I hear all these 1984 blippy bloppy Bach, Mozart tunes, and I thought that should be different for something that's so high tech, you know. I had this manual, it's the Commodore 64 reference manual, programmer's reference manual. That's like the Bible for the Commodore 64. And I looked through the sound chip specs, and I thought this thing can do great stuff. But I wasn't able to actually program music in a machine language, which was a problem. But in BASIC, I could address those things, and I knew what I could do if I got someone to actually do it. And then I found a guy, also on one of the Venlo name-making meetings, and his name was Charles Deanan. He's now one of the head audio at Electronic Arts. We got together and I told him, okay, if you build a music machine that does this and this and this and this and this and this and this, now we'll do music in it, and we'll go to the PCW show, which we actually did. Was it the same year, wasn't it? I think so, yeah. And we presented the stuff to the guys from Electronic Arts and Ubisoft and Ocean Software and the whole shebang. And they were mightily impressed. They were like, I was 15 years old. You wrote that? And since then we've done music for games. So it was, we started doing Mario didn't, but I think the rest of us did. We wrote demos just to show off what we could do. But always had in mind, I told my mother and father, to their biggest scare in the look in their eye, you're gonna work at music for video games, it's gonna be your career? I said, yep. So, but it worked out in the end, so not to worry.
When we asked you first, you were 14.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I mean, he didn't have pubic hair at the time.
Yeah, I was younger when I started. Actually, yeah, we started working on this game so early. It was like, I think 1986, yeah, something like that. I mean, I was 14 and I had a crush on his sister. And she actually had a crush on me, but I was 14, she was...
And you're out of luck because she's lesbian.
She is now? Oh my god. Yeah, I have a bad taste in women. No, she's a nice lady anyway. But yeah, it was fun. Good time at the house, unbelievable. Yeah, can't imagine the times it was. It's like bedroom. Yeah, if you look at the Bedroom to Billions movie coming out, I think it describes the atmosphere of that thing. But anyway, yeah, that's the one. Otherwise, it's going to take up too long. Bye.
Welcome to your love life. So, I think I have like 17 sub-questions here, which you all answered, which is great. So this kind of allows me to jump from Hawkeye to Flimbo's Quest at the same time. So let's see. Which came out on System 3? Any specific reason why? Business, girlfriends? I don't know. Who's your business guy? Who's volunteer?
What do you want? Why you went to System 3 with? Yeah, well, what I did, I remember starting with Flimbo's Quest. Actually, it was we got a videotape of Ghouls and Ghosts from the arcade, and that was just released in the arcades. And then we thought maybe we could do a conversion on the 64, and we had this nice demo of it, and I started programming. Jaco did some graphics, and we had a nice parallax scrolling, and we worked a couple of months on the demo. And then we went to US Gold, who had the rights of Ghouls and Ghosts, and then they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we already have a team." So we spent a couple of months, and then it turned into Flimbo's Quest. And when we had a demo ready, it was one full level. I prepared some discs, sent to several software houses. And I had some phone calls from them, and and I came out to System 3. More kill.
So, how did you you contact these companies? Did you just send them a list and hey, we made this and please have some feedback?
Yeah.
Were you nervous? Did you get good feedback? Did you get bad feedback? Can you just give an example of a good feedback and a bad feedback that you remember? Any of you? What you told us?
I don't
Don't. So, microphone. As
I actually don't remember that we ever got a bad. Well, I remember that I sent a demo of Hawkeye to Rare, the company who was later making Donkey Kong Racing, or Diddy Kong Racing for N64, and they were a very promising brand. I remember, and we got a rejection letter from them. We didn't have any game, but we just said, okay, we are a team who can work for you. They didn't want anything, and then Lawrence came out with his game, and then System 3 wanted it. Yeah, it was more of a sort of personal feeling you had with a guy who was sitting on the other side of the table. If he did a good proposal for a payment in advance or royalty-wise, then we would do it. Of course, we were always screwed, but yeah. I don't know why we didn't go to Timeless with it, but I think Timeless was pretty.
so you're in this business meetings now. So do you represent yourself, or do you have a parent who goes with you and says this might not be a good idea because you got screwed every time?
It's a wild west story.
Wild West.
Well, that's fine. Okay. Alright. So with that done, it's so Flimmer's Quest was done C64, but it's also on other platforms. So
Amiga.
yeah, Amiga. So was that done from day one? Is it an afterthought? How does it? How did it go specifically here for Flimbo? We have to make an Amiga version 2 because that would have been picking up in machine sales as well. Any special things about that preparation-wise? At the same time, afterthoughts.
I think at the time it was already when Flimbo came out, which was obviously a year at least later than Hawkeye. The 64 was already really going down, and everybody who had a 64 already bought an Amiga 1000 or even a 500, which was already on the market. So the Amiga already had a sort of life cycle. So it was really necessary to make anything on it. Here in Holland, I think the Atari ST wasn't as big as the Commodore platform, so we didn't bother to do anything on that. I remember that I was in the UK for a while to do conversions of Hawkeye graphic-wise on ST and Amiga, which had to be done in a week. It was totally crazy. But that's how conversions go or went at the time. I don't know what the specific reason was why we started an Amiga game, but I think it was just necessary to do. And we had a friend who could do it, and actually he was even faster than you. But that's one funny thing about System 3 is that the System 3 owner is called Mark Gill. He's like one of the biggest asses in the industry. He was driving a Ferrari, so he was really impressed when he was picked up from the airport and in the Ferrari, and really hot shot. But you know, in the end, we never got our money. I think you got a prepayment or some prepayments from him. But you know, he was writing checks all the time, which was here in Holland not very common. You know, checks were already out. But we were getting checks from the UK, and at one point we were at a show. We were still waiting for a second or a third prepayment of a game or a payment in advance. I don't really remember. But he was on the show. We tried to make the two of us. We tried to make an appointment with him for the show to have a conversation, which he didn't want to respond on, or he was too busy to have us there. And then in the end, he knew where his address was in London, so we drove there in my Mazda, I remember. But he wasn't at home. But we knew he was coming home. He was just out for dinner with his girlfriend, and we just parked on his driveway. I had this brand new Mazda 626 at the time. And when he arrived, we just flashed our lights on, and when he stepped out, you know, I was already 2 meters tall and big, so he was really afraid, I think. Then he wrote a check very present. The only thing was when we tried to collect the check in Holland, it turned out to be a cross check, which we didn't know. So we had to do it all over again.
I think this Mark Hill guy needs more dirt in his face. No, one of the guys, yeah, short one. One of the guys from Remix of Noise, Ray, he actually went up to his offices and he said, "I'm not leaving till I have my money." And he sat down until he got his money, and he got his money in the end. For the same game, by the way. Yeah. Well, not a big part of the day, because he knew he wasn't leaving. He was not going to leave.
Well, you already mentioned you did the music for Flimbo. Any reason why you didn't do it? You as part of the gang, where you other projects?
Yeah.
The flashlights.
No, other games.
Okay. Well, apology accepted.
A nice thing to tell is that today.
Use the microphone.
Yeah, okay. Come on then. A nice thing to tell today about Rijn is that he is, I think, producing for a Dutch group like Kane today. He's making nice recordings, and he's also touring at the moment with Vanessa Paradis in France, in the band.
Okay, so after Flimbo and the Amiga, Commodore also made this nice console, the CD32, which got a release for Disposable Hero. Was it any different working as a platform-wise for CD32 than for the 1200s? I am not a coder. I have no idea.
Well, there wasn't really a big difference in the hardware. It's mostly that there was better audio because there was a CD player in it, so you can have the audio now instead of having it programmed, it could have been pre-recorded, so the audio was different. And for the rest of the coding, there wasn't actually any difference. It was just the same device with additional CD player. So I think the only difference in the CD32 version was the music. That was the only thing that was different. So that's all. Just a marketing ploy, I guess. I'm loading it from disk instead of
Yeah. Okay, so were you happy that you could do CD tracks, or are you limited to the channels?
I didn't do anything.
I didn't do in general. Going from coding music, hard coding music, machine code with sometimes samples. I mean, you had sample, but it was still kind of hard coding a bit. To go into CD, you had to be a music, not just a composer. You had to be a sound engineer too. You had to be an arranger. You had to make it sound good. It's not just some leaps and blobs doing stuff, which you also had to make sound good with filters and everything. But then you had like unlimited tracks if need be. And that took some time to get used to, but once you're used to it, you get creative freedom that you don't know how to cope with at the beginning, but if you dose it right, then you can make more film score-like tracks, I would call it, or something that sounds more like what some people would call real music, which I totally disagree with. But it opens up a lot of possibilities, but also closes creativity. Because having to sit here with 3 channels, you had to be so creative to make it sound like something like 16 channels that you would get a very specific sound that people now refer to as electro, So, but it's a give and take thing. I mean, I still like making C64 and Game Boy tracks for the live performances I do, and also love using something like 2,000 channels just for an orchestra piece. You know what I mean? So that's like you have the best of both worlds and the worst of both worlds. Making a CD track takes a long time. That's the difference.
All right. So I have a few questions left here, and one of them which we already saw on the screen behind you was the Yogo game, which is kind of like an advertising game. Any fun stories or horrible things what you want to share? And what was your input? Did you get this is the artwork and you have to use this, or did you have creative freedom? Anything? I see 3 people going this, 3 people going this. So I'll pass the mic.
I think it still looks cool, you know. Yeah,
Game Boy.
Game Boy game. Well, the Yo-Yo was actually at the time we were making games, we were one of the few people who made games in Holland. So there was another guy, I completely missed him, forgot his name. He was a marketing manager at I also forgot the name of that company. Lollipop. And he actually phoned us up and said, well, Capina, who made Yogo Yogo, is looking for somebody who can make a Yogo Yogo game. Can you make a Yogo Yogo game? You can make a Yogo Yogo game. So he said, well, here are the commercials. So there were lots of commercials, and they said, well, we want to have a bright colors, put the commercials somewhere in it, and make a game.
And just to explain why there's such wacky things in it, like an old lady in a wheelchair, and you know, all these stuff which you see. But the thing was that they had a commercial with all those wacky things in it. With a song everybody knew, and kids could save up points with drinking it, and then they had to, I think, cut out points.
Yeah, then you get the game.
And they will get the game for a relatively low price, or
that's how. And the only funny thing I know about the Yoga Yoga game is actually when we wanted to present it to the head of Campina, and being the lazy fucks that we were an hour late. So good introduction. It's one of the fun things I remember. He wasn't very happy with us.
I think it was the first PC game.
Yeah, first PC game.
And the funny thing to say is the commercial on TV was very wacky, and Arjen Vriesekoop, the cartoonist, made some graphics for the characters, which we converted into pixel graphics on the Amiga. So we worked on our Amiga on the graphics, what were used at the PC at the time. With palette of, I think, 256 colors? Okay, yeah, limited colors.
yeah. Is it, I think you still get the request to make it work on the latest version.
Yeah, I'm sometimes getting emails if I can get hold of a copy of the Yogo Yogo game.
Or make it work on the latest version of MS-DOS. I have Windows 8, whatever. It doesn't work anymore.
You still support it.
Yeah.
DOS.
Just use your 486, which is holding the door open. Okay, so what this is all your past and what you have done and how you have done things before. Anything new in the pipeline? Because you were all sitting here and you are still active in the field. Any new voice projects in the pipeline? Please tell the people.
I think Laurens and I met again 2011, I think. We were both independent, and we thought, why don't we get Voice Over Brains at the road again, not on the map again? Because there's so much history, so much cool projects you've made. Guys are still friends, 30 years, I think, 20 years, 30 years. It's a pity to lose that. connection, and with very much creativity and knowledge to make a game again with a small team with 4 or 5 people in it, like the old days. Nowadays, like guerrilla games in Amsterdam are 200 people plus making a game. It's a challenge to make a game again with 5 or 3 or 5 people. With limited graphics, limited sprites, all things, but make it very, very playable like the old days. So I think we are now working on a project. I started with my brother, a little phone game, a mobile game, but we try to make it as arcade and Amiga-like as possible again. So we're working on it. There is a Facebook page. The game name is Triple Trouble. I have some trailers with me. I think maybe I can show. It's not any playable games, but I made a trailer with music from Rein Ouwehand again. We contacted him, so he said, yes, great, I'm going to make music again for you guys, I know you, and going to be great again. So I can show you if you like. Okay. So yeah, BBB is back on track a little bit again.
Most important thing for us is that 30 years ago we met, Edwin a little later, but you know, and that's most for the 3 of us, but also for Jeroen. We're still in touch, and you know, we're actually still best friends, and that's for me the best thing which remains from this gaming period. We get a lot of questions on the Facebook site, like, were you also screwed by this and this company? Yes, we were also screwed. But for us, the most important thing is the memory that you know, you were 15 and you were allowed by your parents to go on the boat to England and to you know, on a show and show your game. And 2 years later, you could sell it there, and that was one of the best. Well, that's one of the best memories I have.
Yes, Triple Trouble, a little jump and hit game. I'm going to make the graphics for it and animation. My brother programs it, and the boys with friends are helping me with playability, ideas, and stuff like that. And right now, I'm just making music. Here's some little screenshot I make it in 3D, but I try to make a palette in 3D to look like 2D again. Yeah, maybe you can show the trailer. I think it's. Yeah. With music.
Play it again.
Okay, and this is Google only or only for fruit?
Google start, but later on iPhone and Open.
Oh, so it'll come out on
Gotta make some ports. Yeah.
the way you used to making ports. You used to making ports for other platforms. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I think that's the new project. Any famous last words you want to throw into the crowd, and then we can start the Q&A session. No. Yes, or infamous last words. Okay. Question time. Not everyone at the same time, please. Anybody with a question? Sorry.
Yes. I remember an old helicopter game that I think might
it was published on a magazine, German magazine. I think it was called, I'm not sure what the name was. Oh, Data, yeah, correct. It was a challenge to get a game, and the prize was 50,000 marks, I think.
Yeah, but we already knew up front that we were the winners.
Yeah. because I think because of my name, because they wanted to have my name in there. So yeah, that's correct. And I got the money for it.
Yes.
It was good. But I also spent the money in record time also. Maybe next question.
The indie scene that's going on at the moment, a lot of people refer to it very similar to the kind of period where you guys are working, where it's small people making games more sold than like big conglomerate games. But there's people who were there during that period that current indie developers fantasize they're in now. How do you guys think it compares?
I think the scene then is different than the scene now. I think maybe the scene now is how people maybe fantasize about how it was. When we started it was all very simple. We were just simple programmers coming together and creating stuff and doing it on their own. There wasn't really, well, it wasn't really big companies like use Gold or Arts, Oceans. They were a bit smaller. Also, the production of a game was all a bit smaller. Now a game has to have 200 developers or graphic arts, etc. It's now a lot more commercial than it was at our time. In our time, it was every game you made was like, oh yeah, let's publish it. We've got something again we can sell. And now there's, well, so many games. You see games cancelled about every week. Well, this game is cancelled. This game is cancelled. When we started it, well, I can't remember any game.
You also had it later on in the process where you were working on SNES on Pocahontas for Disney.
Yeah.
Nearly finished, cancelled.
Yeah. Pocahontas was my first game that actually got cancelled, but it wasn't my game. It was I was bought in because they wanted a port, they wanted a quick port, which was completely bonkers because they wanted to have a port within a month, which normally would take quite some team a year. So that was my first project, but it's cancelled. That's a bit how I think about the difference between the scene now and the scene when we were starting. Also in our time there wasn't any internet, so the scene was also every communication between all the people were either at the show or was using letters, etc. So it was really fast communication already, which is now, of course, now you download something, or you upload something and you demo, etc. is seen, well, within seconds you actually uploaded it in the entire world. We didn't have that luxury at that time.
What about the indie scene then, rather than the game industry in general?
Now compared to our...
Yeah.
I think the indie scene now is actually a bit like our scene was, because the indie scene again, okay, maybe I misformed. So no, the indie scene is because the indie scene is again small developers, small dedicated teams, guys who just want to make their own games, don't have huge, humongous budgets, etc., but just want to make creative new games. And I like it. There are a lot of good indie games coming out instead of Battlefield 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. There's some new, fresh games again. So I still like playing games, by the way. I look old, but not only look old, I am. But I still like, still playing games is still my hobby. It's the only sports I do. So, right?
Next question. Sir, do you all still play video games a lot?
No, I don't.
Is it also the older games or also the newer
Today I have a 360, a Wii U, a Wii, all the consoles. And I really like all the Mario, Zelda stuff. And my kids sort of tend to want to play GTA and all the Battlefield and stuff, but I always try to tell them or to push them in a way that Pac-Man is also a nice game, and it's not only the graphics, it's just the idea behind the game. They don't pick it up.
What age are you talking about?
Sorry?
What age?
Age, my kids are 9, 12 and 14. So.
Legally supposed to be over 18 if they're playing GTA.
Yeah. It's not in Holland.
I'll try a really quick one. Do you show your kids, look what daddy did when he was your age? And what's the response?
I did a year ago, and they couldn't believe it. They were stunned, I think. Yeah, they were, after that they were showing it to their friends, and they see a whole guy for 2 minutes in their board. So
yeah, my kids go like, "Oh, sure, daddy."
Yeah.
Sure. That's well, they know I made the game, so I after a while I could convince them. Yeah, they actually win these games. But it took a bit of convincing.
Ja, andere is dezelfde vraag, spelen de andere spellen.
Oh, you play other games.
Do you all still play games?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I try sometimes to play games online, but I can't get up with the guys now. It's all too fast compared to the time then. But I play Zelda a lot.
We're both playing or replaying the Wind Waker HD at the moment.
Play games, PSP, Naughty Dog stuff. I think they are very cool studio, inspirational. But also I turned on my Amiga once 2 months, I think. I think very little games on Amiga on 64 have very original gameplay elements in it. And I think people forget that a lot. You can use that again in games today, but all the AAA titles are coming out these days. Kind of forget that good gameplay element that had the games on the 64 Amiga at the time. So I'm curious if I can put it again in new games, and I'm curious what people think of it. And I hope it's not lost, that point.
Yeah, I kept playing games throughout the years. When Half-Life came out, my brother convinced me to actually join his clan. We were called the Flower Team, we pretended to be girls. We got so addicted to it, we got like the best in the world. At one point, my brother was number 1 of 15 million players, and I was number 11, and we decided to quit the game because we were not doing the jobs, we were not paying attention to our girlfriends, and we just didn't care of ourselves anymore. Then I had to stop gaming, just to pick up real life, do some projects, and then I do play casual games online. I try to stay away from GTA 5, but I didn't have to because it has an end. But yeah, the online games is off limits for me. But right now I'm really into Minecraft, which is just amazing. Actually, was developed by Nudge, I think. As a world simulator, and that turned into a world frenzy amongst kids and also adults, and even architects are having a go with it, building fabulous buildings, and 70,000 times bigger than the normal world. It's just a world, so it's quite impressive. That's what I play when I don't have other stuff to do. Yeah, love a game. So I will always keep playing games, but I have to stay a bit away from first-person shooters and stuff, because I get so addicted to playing 14 hours, 15 hours a day. Okay, that's just to your answer.
Want to join my server?
Sorry? Oh, you have a server? Which one is it?
Well, we're starting a new one.
Okay.
Maybe we can Facebook or something.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. Meet me after. Yo.
What is it that inspired you guys into wanting to make games in the first place? I'm really curious what your own perspectives were that you thought, I want to make games. Why did you want to do it?
I'll answer the first one, this with the music. I just wanted to make better music for video games because the music at the time sucked. And there was one guy or two guys that rocked and I wanted to be as good as them. Rob Howard, Martin Galway, and other guys, Ben Douglas and stuff. So yeah, that was my motivation to actually start doing, game music.
Well, I don't know anybody who doesn't want to make a game. I mean, in this room, for instance, I think everybody wants to had some point when you had an idea to do something and to do it better than somebody else, and that's what we thought. We thought, we were big fans of Tony Crowther at the time, but we always thought, the nice games and great numbers in selling, I think, but the graphics were always a little bit, could have been done better, that was my idea, and that's why I wanted it. And you, I think Hawkeye was really heavily inspired in the game Rygar, which he could finish in the arcade with one guild.
So I wanted to make, I thought, well, I can make that game on the 64. Sadly enough, the 64 wasn't as powerful as I wanted it to be. So that's why I wanted to make that, that was my inspiration. I wanted to make that game. I wanted to play it on my Commodore 64. So that's why I wanted to make it. It was also a bit of a challenge and proof to me that I could do it. Because the first thing, my dad bought me my computer when I was, my 64, when I was 14 years old. And there was nothing, just a computer and a screen, so there was no tape desk, nothing to save, nothing. You could do, you could type it in, but power off, then bye-bye program. So that went okay for a couple of weeks, and I said, well, maybe it's good if I could actually save my program so I can use it later. So then he bought me a floppy disk drive, which was bloody expensive. It cost as much as a PC does now. So, and all the time I want to improve myself. So I started with Visual Basic, with Basic, and I got bored with it in about a month. I said, well, is this the fastest I can get? How can I get it faster? So I started learning about machine code. And the first project I did was actually in Basic, create my first ensemble, because I didn't know where to get one from. So I made an ensemble in Basic, to get my programs running. I thought, well, what can I do to improve more? And well, and because of the games I played in the arcade, I thought, well, this is a very good challenge for me to do it, make a game. So that's constantly my driving force is how can I improve myself? How can I be a good programmer? That's what drives me.
Can you tell something about at what cost that came at a young age while doing school and stuff?
About what?
What cost? Yeah. Luckily for me, at that time I was already a nerd. So social interactions weren't really my big thing. So being behind the computer and actually not having a lot of friends wasn't really a problem for me because I didn't have friends to start with. So well, that wasn't really a social cost involved. There was a big educational cost involved because at the age of 16 I thought, fuck school. Yeah. I can make games and I can make money doing games, so why the fuck should I go to school? So we had a couple of small issues with that at home. They weren't really happy that I didn't even finish high school, what we call maybe high school here in Holland. And then I dropped out and actually wanted to produce games. But, well, I myself was absolutely fine with it. The only drawback with this because initially we made some money doing games, and when you're 18 or 16, 17, 18, and when you were getting some money, it's like, oh man, I'm rich.
Yeah.
I made it. I'm settled for life. It took about a couple of 2 years, and then I was, oh man, I'm broke. So at that time, there was a small drawback because, well, yeah, you didn't have any education, you dropped out. And that was also for me the realization that, well, this maybe sound like advice from an old man, but maybe it is advice from an old man as well. And that time it made me realize that, for example, money is something that isn't really, it doesn't concern me. I don't care about money. Luckily, because if I would have cared about money, I would have been pissed off about not getting paid for my games. So it also made me realize that the best thing in life is to have good friends and have a comfortable life, etc., and do stuff you like doing. That's why I still do programming. I can't do anything else. If it has a keyboard, I'm fine with it. If it doesn't have a keyboard, I'm screwed. So that's about the cost involved.
I got a question about newer, younger developers. For each of us, there we got Ataris, we had Commodore 64, technically and a keyboard that was programmable. Right now, kids run with tablets, game consoles. They have no way to make their own games unless they have a PC. I think that most kids are not interested in this. How do you see new developers come out in the scene? How does this influence game developers at all? Do you have an opinion?
I can tell you that maybe I'm speaking maybe as a young guy here. I can speak. So I can tell something about what for me young developers should do, and what I find sometimes lacking in young developers. Maybe that's answering your question. It's when I see new programmers starting to program. And they get education from school in programming, I'm sometimes a bit saddened, but a bit.
Well, you cannot teach creativity.
No, you cannot. No. But it's also what you learn in school now about programming is not what you should, in my opinion, should learn about programming. Today in school, when you learn about programming, you learn how to make websites and how to make you use building blocks, and with that you make something. If you make a game, my opinion is, if you make games, you should really know what you're doing. You should really know what is programming, what is a bit, what is a byte, what's shifting, what's etc. And that's not really taught in schools at the moment. It's more like get a box of Lego blocks and put them all together to make your application. I don't think that's the way to really make a proper game. That's yeah, well, that's at least that's my opinion. I'm not sure.
I think nowadays there are a couple of tools like Unity and other things where are built-in things with blocks you can make a game. And what I said earlier, the creativity, like Jaco said, and the ideas are put away for a moment, get guided behind the computer, start Unity, and push all the blocks together to make a little concept game, and then make it further to a real game. But the first sketching, the first ideas are missing. So I think it's not good. It's not the way to make a game like we used to make games.
I had this discussion with Robert Ramsey, did a game in something like Unity, but it was, I forgot, not too long ago. And the thing we always do when we try to make a game, so he does concept art and makes a plan. This should be in the game, these characters, this is the storyline, it's gonna have these events happening in between. This is how it's gonna look, and then we look into the technicalities, and then we will, no matter how, get it done. And that's where the programming thing comes in. Some things have to be hard-coded. You can't just use all the standard tools, but every game will look a bit the same. same routines, same movements, and if you create your own particle system, you know that this explosion will look so much better and stuff. So I think in game design schools they should really teach people how to go from a concept, really spend half the time actually learning them to write a concept art, storyline, and the other half just extremely based on how to get technical. That you as a graphic designer, for example, know what the program has to do with the graphics. So that's like this interaction between designers and programmers, and also, I mean, I'm a music guy, I have to make sound effects, sometimes layered. I know programming, so I know exactly what the program has to do and where it has to be placed in the game. I think the technical expert is not the only thing. It should be a combination of design and knowing how design works and how you can put everything together in the game, and the technical stuff, and as well the other stuff is putting both together. And I see that lacking in some game design courses. Anyway, that's it. Any other questions?
We can take a few more questions.
Yeah.
Nothing?
You?
Maybe
One, two, yeah.
You said earlier that you started making game music because all the music that was already out there wasn't good enough.
Not all, but a lot of music was just please. Yeah.
Yes, but there were a few that were good. Can you give a few examples of what you found?
Well, yeah, we had, of course, the legendary track Monty on the Run from Rob Hubbard, Commando. Well, he did, I mean, Rob Hubbard's music was always good, so to speak. I mean, he didn't do any crap tracks unless they were for some demos, just for fun, like the Chicken song or something. But most of Martin Galway's stuff was good. He used to the 64, not like me and Rob tried to do like a disco machine, so to speak. He used it as a synthesizer like Jean-Michel Jarre did, with very long tunes, which is extremely impressive. But there was just a few guys that were good, and the rest of the team just like, well, I gotta say, some of these games are very classic because of their actually repetitive, simple tunes, which you remember because they had like Mozart playing, and you know you've been playing the game for 2 weeks, and you heard that same loop for 1 minute over and 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 over, and you can repeat this forever. Again, and people would just, I mean, little kids, 7 years old, would come down to dinner and they were like, why are you listening to that? That's because of the games. So, but yeah, but the main thing really was to make stuff that was better than what was out there. It would be more suitable to the games. You know, you have a space shooter with Bach playing in the background. It's just, yeah, it's surreal. It's cool in a way, but it's surreal. It's not what kids would normally want, so to speak. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Alright, cool.
Last one?
I was wondering, you're talking about music, and one of my favorite tunes on the Amiga is from Hybrids, and it's from Paul van der Valk. I was curious, is that somebody you know within the scene in the Netherlands, or?
Yeah, I've talked to him a couple of times on the phone, and we were in contact. But, yeah.
Okay. And what always amazed me that a lot of people like that music because of the repetitiveness and the longiness of it. But he only made a few tunes, and is that basically because commercially there wasn't a lot of money to be earned in that business?
I think for that particular game, actually, there was no memory left.
Okay.
We were always, I mean, you had like a 512 kilobyte standard Amiga RAM, and like the program would take, well, yeah, we would take like all he could, and then the graphic designer would take all he could, and then just like, okay, we got 16 kilobytes left, do all the music on that. Something like that. I had to fight for my RAM, and we had to fight for a RAM, believe me.
You can press your heart, no.
Yeah. Make smaller loops. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's questions.
Okay, that's it. Most interesting question?
Yeah, so let's first thank the guys for their performance and their answers. card. I have three personal favorites, maybe you guys have one. The question about the new programmers coming in school, how does that differ from the old style of programming where the family game?
Use the mic.
That doesn't sound good. So I had three favorites. One was from Dennis in the back about what's the difference between very young kids growing up with iPads and how that's going to affect the long term of programming development games. I like the indie development question. How does your development side goes to the indie? And the guy behind there, we had a really good question about the cost. So you gained probably a lot. What did it cost?
Well, I think the question was better than the answer.
So maybe we can decide with a round of applause. And then the guy or girl that gets the most applause will get his card. So first, the question from Dennis. iPad generation versus old generations. Round of applause. How would you like that question? Then Molly's question about the indie scene versus the scene now. How did you like that question? So far we have a winner. Then the third question about what are the actual costs of development, maybe personal or whatever. Round of applause for that.
Tear it up and give it both
I'm not sure. The one again for the indie and the one again for the back. And one for the cost. The roots is indie. Okay, the room will start performing in a bit. Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys once again.